Kas sa tahad, et ma hakkaksin loengut termodünaamikast?
Kas sa tahad nagu komöödia läbi nagu mingi soojendus ka?
Shit. Teadsin, et midagi ununes.
Okei. Kas on midagi kuulda va?
Streami see nagu see pealkiri näitas, et Game Progress Demonstration mulle.
Näitas või?
Jah, nagu see YouTube'i see.
Okei, ma pean ümber muutma. Aga nii peaaegu arvuti taha jõua. Kas ta ei saada? Huvitav, kas Raul kuuleb? Raul? Test. Nii, display caps.
Nii palju inimesi või?
Rohkem kui üks kord.
Raul! Äkki on sul seal jälle heli maha keerata? No, las praegu siis olla, sest ma tean, et päris asjad. Aga põhimõtteliselt, kui sa alustad, siis on niimoodi, et Shift 9.
Shift 9?
Jah. Ja see on kõik.
Okei. No, ma üritan meeles, ma panen endale ise kirja.
Ma olen siin. Ma lähen kontrollin kõik. Läks nüüd tänaga. Päris põhjalikult.
Ma leidsin, et mul on lihtsam kirjutada kogu tekst välja mõni hetk ja siis mõni hetk leidsin, et ei viitsi ja siis on nagu osa on nagu ühte ja teistmoodi.
Raula, ma iskan sulle lingi vastu, kus see töötab. See viskab mulle kuhu? Facebook chati sulle. Nii soovitud võrdselt välja. Raimid, on küsis. Aasta lõpp. Kuhand puhata saab? Pärast ta jõule pärast. no Hille, kas sa oleks, kas mu õpetaja on tükk aega soovitas rääkida teemal õpetajate palgatõus?
Siis ma pean teiega... okei, ja. Hiljuti käisin seal esinemas kunstiakadeemia jõulupeol ja seal oli ka niimoodi, et küsisin midagi. Kuule, rääkige, millal see Tartu maantee hoone valmis saab, eks ju. Rääkige meile rahast. Mul raha ei ole. See on see kunstiinimeste nagu see alatine probleem.
Kultuuriinimestega üldiselt kogu otmisel ei ole probleeme enamasti rahaga, eks. Ma vaatasin, oli Jaak Vilo vist jagas õpetajate palku. Mitte õpetajate, vaid lihtsalt, et palga vastavalt sektorile, siis oli, et kunstnikud said kõige vähem raha, siis läks enam vähem, aga siis oli, et siis 2/3 peale olid programmeerijad ja siis kõige ees olid hambaarstid. Et said 3 teistest rohkem. Keskelt läbi.
See on huvitav.
Et see on nagu valus, vaata. See on hästi otsene vajadus. Tahtvaga on see, et tahtvaga võiks olla funktsionaalne ja hästi töötav. Ja kunstiga on selline suhe üldse väga vabase. See võib olla ka kuhu üldse olla. Oli üks niisugune autojuht, kellega ma kunagi sõitsin, siis rääkis, et et kas see kunst ongi selline keeruline asi. Et näiteks, et lõngus on hea kunstnik. Rahvast näeb tema tööd, see on tänaval. Aga teised kunstnikud ja tööd galeriis keegi ei näe, et miks seda üldse vaja on. Põhimõtteliselt ma sain tast täitsa aru, selline keeruline kaam.
3 minutit vaja.
Võib-olla rääkida anekdootel. Mina pidin seoses selle, et ma õpin hariduses, siis ma pidin õppima anekdoote rääkima. Nii naljakas, kui see ei ole. Ja siis anekdoot, mille ma siis õppinud selgeks, oli selline, kuidas on lühikene oli 1. september. Ema ja isa loistavad karjuvad jõnglast enda järel kooli poole, siis laps karjub 12 aastat, mille eest? Kuule jah, aga see fanbase vastas, aga siis see tüüp peale Kristjan Rõus ei ole Facebookisele vastanud. Et ta pole näinud isegi seda. Mis on hästi huvitav, nagu tüüp tegeleb nagu tuhundusega, publishinguga. Tüüp tegeleb publishinguga, tuhundusega, aga tüüp Facebookis ei käi. Mitte kunagi üldse, et käib hästi arvast. Kristjan Roose oli siis Creative Mobili publishing osakonna juht. See, kes siin siis ostab siis põhimõtteliselt sisse asja.
No, tal on kontaktid teistmoodi ja pluss on võib-olla distractiga. Ja lisaks on see...
Pead selle tavalise meili peale küsimuse saatma, et ta küsis, et mis kuupäeval sobib meile, siis ma saatsin talle, aga see oli 2 nädalat tagasi.
See on tavaliselt, meili peal äkki seal nii. Ja homme läinud, ja noh, ma saab üle. Ja see... Teaduspordist on teie kuulda mis sa mõtlesid, et kas nad ütlesid, nad hakkavad toimetama järgmise aasta esimesel poolel, aga millega täpselt, mis plaanil üldse seda meile tanki aru? Ma arvan, et pisega teeb. Sellest ei räägiti pärast seda muudumit ja nali ja lühidalt, et järgmise aasta mida? Siis take backs. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to do this in English, if that's okay with everybody. Hi, hello, how is everybody doing? Good, yeah, awesome. So, I am Jürmo. That is not written on the slides because I don't want to be held accountable. If you don't know me, I have quite a bit of formal education in computer science, but for the past 5 years I have been pursuing a career in entertainment, more specifically comedy. And this has mainly taken the shape of studying and performing and teaching improvised comedy, and to a lesser extent I've done some scripted stand-up comedy and scripted sketches. All of this is to say that I am totally an expert and totally qualified to be telling you what I'm about to tell you, and not just someone who pretends they know what they're talking about. Just so you don't get the wrong idea. Also, I've been doing some game development, mainly in the Ludum Dare game jams for the past couple of years, and I have attempted to put what I've learned from the discipline of comedy, from the comedic arts, into use in game design and writing and development. And this talk is mainly based on my experiences and observations doing that. Now, first of all, a word on priorities. By the way, has anybody seen Andres's talk on how to win a game jam? Yes. Yeah, one of the key points there was, I think, was that you should have weird humor in your game. Now, this is something that caused a bit of disappointment in a friend of mine. I was talking to him, and he said, "Well, this is a bit unfair. It seems always the game that's funny, that does the jokes, that seems to win. So what chance do the rest of us have?" And I just before we get started on this, I just want to say something about priorities and make my stance on this issue clear. I don't think that you have to have humor or comedy in order to have a good game. In fact, I think it's quite possible to have a game with comedy and humor and jokes and whatever, and have it still be a bad game. I do believe that gameplay and mechanics comes first. That said, once you do have two games with equally solid core gameplay, I think humor can certainly give your game an advantage. You know, given two games with equally engaging gameplay, you are likely to rate the one with the one that makes you laugh higher. So, having gotten that out of the way, in the April of last year, I think it was April last year, I can't believe it, I thought it was 2 years ago, but it was, we had the first Ludum Dare here. Is that correct? Does that sound true, or was it 2015? Because it was 2016, right? It's crazy. It was Ludum Dare 35. It was my first game jam, and with these fine, good-looking fellows with these fine-looking people, we made this silly little game. It has many names, so this is just one of them. It was a game about aliens who kidnap sheep to provide energy for their sheep-powered spacecraft. And in this talk I will mainly discuss my experience making this game and the nuggets of truth that I have distilled from that experience. And fair warning, the humor you might see in that game or any of the other examples I give you might not be to your liking or to your taste, but the conclusions and the advice I've drawn should still apply regardless of your humor sensibilities. I am, of course, after all, an expert, like I said, and I know what I'm talking about. Let's see if, hang on, yes. I need to have a look at what my next slides are. So let's start from the beginning, a comedy attitude. Let me start with a question. When are you funniest? Under what circumstances, under what conditions are you your funniest self? When do people laugh at you? When does your sense of humor shine? Anyone at all?
Well, doesn't it depend of culture itself?
Yes, it does depend. It can be under several different circumstances. So you can name any of those.
When you're comfortable.
When you're comfortable, good. Yes. When are you comfortable?
When you know the topic.
When you know the topic. Yes.
When I'm pissed off at something.
When you're pissed off at something, certainly, because you don't filter yourself. You let it all out. Yes.
When you're around people you know well.
Correct. That was the one I was looking for. But yes, all those are correct answers. I would say that you are funniest, and you're all funniest when there is no pressure to be funny, when there is no pressure to perform or to say something funny. And yeah, it's when you're just joking around with your friends, people you are comfortable with, and when you feel relaxed because you know the topic, or when you just don't care, so you let it all out, like when you're pissed off. When is it hardest to be funny? I'd say it's the opposite of that. So when the pressure is on, this is why comedians hate it when they're asked, when they're told, so tell a joke. I mean, if I were to ask any of you up here right now and put you on the spot, say, go on, make us laugh, be funny, say something, tell a joke, you would probably not feel very well, and you would probably not be comfortable, and you would probably not say anything particularly funny. So when we first arrived here in the April of 2015, it was our 2016, yes, correct. It was for me, I can't speak for the rest of my team, but it was for me at least a little bit stressful, and yeah, I felt the pressure a little bit because it was my first time, and I assumed, perhaps naively, that everybody else is like a really seasoned veteran game developer here and really good at developing games, and I stand no chance of even completing a game, or let alone winning. And I think I do think that we shared this this sense of anxiety a little bit within our team. So we decided to take the pressure off. We decided to just fuck around and have fun and deliberately make a game that's weird and not care about winning or making a good game or a game that anyone liked. So we decided, fuck the rules, we do what we want. And this was reflected in the name we picked for our team, and it was this: Zero fucks, which is approximately the amount of fucks you should be giving when you're brainstorming ideas for a game, especially in the context of a game jam, because you don't have the luxury of second guessing or criticizing your ideas because of the time pressure. So this brings me to my first piece of advice. Take the pressure off. It is only possible to be creative and to be funny when you are not giving a fuck, basically. When you're in a playful state of mind, when there's no pressure, and you don't feel the anxiety that you have to perform or you have to be funny. So this comedy attitude or mentality that I'm talking about, I like to call it the way of the zero fucks. Meaning, firstly, focus on the funny. Focus on the fun, and the funny will take care of itself. So, if you can, instead of feeling anxiety about what you're going to do, just try to have fun and don't care about anything else. And probably the funny stuff, the creative stuff, the interesting stuff, it will all take care of itself if you just try to have fun. And here's a GIF that's not displayed because this, yeah. Anyway, I had a really great GIF here. So I can pass around my phone. Maybe it's, yeah. You know what? Never mind. Anyway, it was this Star Wars GIF where from the prequels where Obi-Wan says, "Look upon the field where I grow the fucks that I give. Lay thine eyes upon it, and you will see that it is barren." It's a really great GIF. Awesome, really. So yeah, that's great. This is going well.
Yes.
Yes. Nice. Okay. But yeah, this works because you don't criticize your ideas, you don't censor yourself, and when you don't censor or filter yourself, you let out your weird, creative, and original ideas. And that's what creativity is. Enough about that. When you're not criticizing your ideas, what do you say? What do? You say yes to your ideas. Especially, this is especially useful in brainstorming. I mean, when you're taught brainstorming, you're told to not criticize any ideas. You just say the first thing that comes to your mind, no matter how obvious or weird or bad your idea may be, you will just say yes to it. To give an example, the topic for Ludum Dare 35 was shapeshift. So obviously the most obvious first idea we have is to make a stupid pun about shapeshift, like sheep shift, which I think many participants did. So it was like obvious, but we didn't go like, no wait, this is too obvious. And we went. It didn't stop us from making a silly game about kidnapping sheep. So, and the thing with ideas is often I hear people say when I'm performing or when I've given workshops, is people come to me and they say, I could never do what you do. I don't have ideas. And mainly what I think people mean when they say they don't have ideas is that they think their ideas are not good. Like they think the ideas are obvious, or they're just bland and plain and not good enough. Here's the secret about ideas. Nobody cares how good the idea is. It doesn't matter. It really does not matter how obvious or how stupid or weird or whatever the idea is. It's just a starting point. So how many people enjoy public speaking? Let's just do a quick test here. How many people hate public speaking? Like it's like a nightmare scenario. Exactly. So if I were to ask one of these people here, I hope I have this slide next. Let me check. Oh yes, I talked about not self-censoring. So if I were to ask one of those people up here and put you on the spot right here and tell you to talk about something, you know, anything at all for 5 minutes or an hour or whatever, you would probably go, oh, no, shit, no, I have no ideas. I have like zero ideas. I don't know what to say. Well, no, you do actually, kind of. You have at least one idea. You have the idea of I need to get out of here. I hate being here. You have the sense of the sense of anxiety that comes with public speaking. And guess what? That idea is enough. It's enough. That's all you need. You can make a game about it, out of that if you want to. I mean, can you imagine a game about the dangers of public speaking, where you have to control a character and they're doing a presentation and everything starts going wrong? So like you do, oh, you just discovered that you're standing in front of the room naked. You know, do quick time events, press X to put clothes on, or like your PowerPoint just crashed, press Y to, you know, reboot or whatever. But the point is, ideas don't have to be good, they're just a starting point. Well, this is weird. Interesting. Wow. Okay. Well. Okay. So the second aspect to saying yes. You want to say yes to your ideas, but you also want to say yes to other people's ideas, because this is often you might think, well, how can I say yes to both these ideas because they're so different? And I want to do another thought experiment with you guys. So imagine, think of a really common game, like something like a Hitman or an Assassin's Creed, where you play as like this badass guy who goes around killing people, right? And there's those games. There's so many of those games, right? Such an often done game. It's really obvious. And then think of another really common game, such as, I don't know, something casual, like Candy Crush, right? No, there's nothing original about either of those games. They're just done to death. So what if you were to mash these two games together? I'll give you a second to think. What would be a mechanic or something that would come out of that? Anyone can say their ideas regarding that at any point.
You're literally an assassin who crushes candies.
Yeah, you assassinate candy. Why not? And that, you know, that's original. That's never been done, and it also made Andres laugh. So, and he's technically people. So you guess what? You make people laugh. Anyone else?
Maybe that's how Fruit Ninja was born.
Yeah, maybe that's how Fruit Ninja was born. So I guess it's not that original. Moving on. Yeah. Maybe you know. Maybe you're someone who makes candy, like a confectioner who's killing people by giving them too much candy and like slowly rotting their teeth. That's a way to kill people, making them fat. Yes, you were going to say something, Andres. You had an idea? No, okay. But the point is, by combining seemingly obvious ideas, you can get something non-obvious, something original, or Fruit Ninja, but hopefully something original. Cool. Okay. Let's look at another example. So, another common game genre is, you know, stealth games, where you're like playing a ninja or a thief or you know, why not an assassin, just trying to go undetected by some guards or something. And let's take another really common scenario, not necessarily for games, but another common scenario is, you know, having social anxiety. And we talked about public speaking already, but you could also have social anxiety when, you know, being at a party and not wanting to talk to people, or being afraid to talk to people. What if you joined those two together? That's not a hypothetical question, because we made that game in Ludumdare 38. which was in 2016 or 17 or something. So here you have this guy who's at a party, and he's trying to avoid talking to people. So the game mechanic is very well known as the stealth game, but you never play a stealth game as like an ordinary person. You're always this badass trying to, like a thief or a ninja or whatever. But here you're just trying to avoid people because you need to get to the bathroom. So hopefully, by combining these two very ordinary ideas, you get something original. Oh, by the way, this is the fun group of people that we made the game with. Really awesome. But you get something original, maybe something that makes the player stop and think, go, yeah, I guess that's true. Those two scenarios really are similar. Maybe something that is relatable, something that makes them feel that, yeah, I've been in that situation. I've been at a party where I didn't want to talk to anyone. And maybe, just maybe, it'll also make people laugh. And that's great. So, in other words, say and. Take the one idea and put it together with the other idea, combine ideas. So it is common at a game jam to, when you're brainstorming ideas, it's common to just take a bunch of ideas. Everybody gives their ideas, right? And then you have a vote. You vote which idea is best, everybody likes most, and you pick that idea and you do that game. So what we tried to do with the sheep game, I think, as far as I can recall to the best of my memory, what we tried to do was combine ideas, at least to a certain extent, so that we took a bit from one and a bit from other, and this is what I recommend you try in the next game jam. Instead of voting, try to combine your ideas, and it may work out and come up with something original, or Fruit Ninja. And that brings me to the fourth part of the way of the zero fucks, which is this: whatever happens, pretend you did it on purpose. So I can give one quick example of this. When we were making the sheep game, we discovered that, the name is taken, so the original name we thought of. So we had to come up with a bunch of new names, and then we were like, well, now we have to pick one name out of those. And then we thought, well, fuck it, we'll just put all those names on that game. So what we ended up was a game that had a bunch of different names, and we were like, yep, we meant to do that. We put all those names on that game, which is terrible for marketing because I'm stuck referring to it as the sheep game. But it's an original idea, and hopefully it's also funny. Here's a quote about that sheep game from a member of the jury. The graphics are not exactly great, but I guess that was intentional. We didn't have, our main artist, we had two artists, but our main artist was just like, perhaps it was not that experienced, but the idea is solid, that we had this game with like weird sense of humor and like kind of retro-ish aesthetics, so it makes sense that. And we try to lean into the weird and the strange, so it makes sense that someone would mistake this for, intentional. And oftentimes, like, humor comes from making the unintentionally hilarious, the unintentionally funny, making it intentional. So I was. I'll give you an example from a real life conversation that I recently had. We were at a restaurant with some friends, and this one person that I know, she was telling a story about how she was in somewhere in the Mediterranean, like Spain, at a fancy restaurant, and trying to like open up some crab's legs or some fancy dish, and she really tried really hard, but it couldn't manage, and it kind of slipped out of her plate and landed on the next table. Right? This is funny. It happened by accident, but it's funny. So I would suggest, if you want to make it really funny, like make it intentional, you just look at that table where it landed, raise your glass and go, here's from us, you know, here's to you, you know, and that this was intentional. Anyway, that's basically the core of what I'm trying to say here. I think I had another example here. Hang on, I'm have to consult. Oh yes. Also something Andres mentioned during the game jam was the first Civilization game, where the Gandhi's there was the character of Gandhi, right, Mahatma Gandhi, and his aggression was set to low, but because they used like what is it, one byte per numbers, it flowed over and went like super aggressive. So accidentally they had a super aggressive Gandhi. So in the next game they made it. They intentionally made that change. So yeah, that's how you do it. Okay, moving on. I think we're done here. Oh yes, this is important. That's part of it. This is to illustrate the point I just made. There are no mistakes, only happy little accidents. So whatever you do, just pretend you did it on purpose. Just make it work somehow. Chapter 2, comedy in story. So the previous part was about game development, like the general ideas there, but also a lot about like the first brainstorming phase. So we have done the brainstorming, we have the game idea, perhaps we already have a prototype and some gameplay. Now what? So with the sheep game, the dialogue was a bit of an afterthought. So on the first days of the jam, we had kind of like presented and we sold the game on the strength of the humor. And on the final day, we were making it. We had a bit of a panic situation because we were like, oh crap, we don't have any humor in the game. So we quickly threw together a dialogue system, and I was tasked with writing some dialogue, like a backstory, to fill in the fiction, the lore of the game. And I had to introduce the universe, the characters, the premise of the game. So I started with what we already knew. We already knew that you play as aliens who kidnap sheep. Now this is a pretty absurd premise, so you have to explain it, justify it somehow. Because here's the thing with absurd things and goofy and wacky things and crazy things, like the idea of sheep, like the idea of aliens stealing sheep. It's not necessarily funny, you know. I don't think that just having a crazy idea equals comedy. I don't think that's the case. I think comedy comes from when you explore that wacky and the funny thing, or that crazy thing, and you contrast it with some sort of realistic reality. So hang on, blah 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 blah. Excellent. So let's quickly have a look at the first piece of dialogue that should fill out the backstory of the game. So this one alien is saying, the left one, I think his name's Blurg, saying our energy tank is dry as a martini, we need more power to make it to the concert. What we need, Blurg, is a cheap alternative energy source. Shope, I think you mean sheep. I'm pretty sure the plural is shope. I programmed the shope dope to direct the shope onto our shipe. So, let's quickly go through the process of writing this bit of dialogue. Why do the aliens kidnap sheep? Well, I guess, no, just let me just back up a little bit. To write this dialogue, I had to ask why and answer the question why. So we know a few things about this universe, that aliens kidnap sheep. We have to answer why. So why do the aliens kidnap sheep? Well, they use sheep as a power source for their spaceship. That has been established. But why? Why do they do that? Well, they are obviously trying to get someplace with their spaceship. Good. Where? Where are they going? Well, having seen 1,000 Hollywood movies about alien invasions, you know, the obvious answer is they're going to Earth to either destroy or enslave the human race. But that's boring and that's obvious. And in comedy, we want to take the non-obvious, the surprising choice. So, what's a surprising or non-obvious place they would be going? How about a concert? Well, guess what? It's the last day of the jam and I really don't have any time to criticize my ideas. So let's go with concert. And we'll settle for that. Small side note, we generally generally the specific tends to be funnier than the general, so you want to give more specifics, like whose concert it is. I don't give it in this exact slide or this exact bit of dialogue because I saved it for a later joke that comes later in the game. But the joke is that one of them doesn't even know whether they're going to a Taylor Swift or Grateful Dead concert. It's really funny in context, or not. Anyway, but let's see. Explain why. I said this. Take the surprising choice. Good. Next thing. The great thing about having them be just a couple of guys going to a concert as opposed to, you know, alien overlords coming to destroy the Earth is that they are relatable now. I'll take a drink of water. Let's have a show of hands. Who here has ever planned or plotted to take over the Earth or any planet? No one. No one. Who here has ever gone to a concert? Show of hands. Yes. Okay, I am talking to the right audience. And we can also relate to the experience of you know, having your gas tank be empty because, you know, your absent-minded friend forgot to, you know, fill it up. I was recently in this situation where I rented an electric car for the first time in my life and I ended up being late to an event I needed to be because they don't tell you that the quick loading, well, they have quick loading stations, great, but the quick loading is about an hour, so that was interesting. But the point is, it's a relatable situation, hopefully. Let me. So you want to ground the absurd in some sort of reality, something we can relate to. So hopefully we can relate to the situation and the characters. It's just this one business-like dude who just wants to get to the concert, and the other guy who's a bit dumb but is still likable. And hopefully when you read that text you go, well, yeah, I know someone like that, or that's totally me. Hopefully. So it doesn't matter that the game world or the premise is crazy or wacky, because the characters are human, even though they're aliens. And this is important because we are more likely to laugh at characters that we can relate to and that we understand. We are more likely to, yeah, it's easier to laugh at characters that we can, whose minds we can get into. So coming back to the this also relates back to the game, like the Introvert Adventures, the one with the stealth game where you try to avoid people at a party. Because again, you know, how many of us can relate to the experience of being a special ops agent, trying to avoid being captured by like the enemy soldiers? I mean, you probably, if you can relate to that, you probably can't tell us anything about that because it's a secret. But I bet we can all relate to the experience of not wanting to talk to people, right? So bye. No, I'm kidding. Yes. Yes, and have relatable characters, grant the absurd in a reality. I am stuck in my text because I tried this without the text at home, and I was just stumbling all over my words. Sorry. Anyway, so comedy is often a mix of the surprising and the familiar. And in this case, like in the case of the Introvert Adventure, the familiar sentiment is I've done this. I've been at parties. I don't want to talk to where I don't want to talk to anyone. And the surprising is I never realized this, but yeah, the situation does have a lot in common with like a soldier trying to not be captured or ninja avoiding being spotted. And in the sheep game, the setting and premise are, you know, surprising and absurd because, you know, why would aliens steal sheep? But the characters and their worries and their motivation to get to a concert is recognizable and relatable. Next, explore. Now I'm just gonna put this slide up once again because you'll notice there's this weird word here, shope, which is not a real word. I looked it up. And it's an interesting story and it's instructive, so I'm going to tell it to you. In English, the plural of sheep is the same as the singular, it's sheep, which causes problems when you're programming because, you know, you want to have different variable names for your entities. You want to have, because you want to avoid collisions of the name, because you want to have one variable name for sheep in singular and another for plural. So to solve this problem, Anders came up with a new word for the plural of sheep and made that shope. And this became one of our running jokes when we were developing. We even had a couple of titles for the game with that word in it. So I felt that I would need to somehow justify this word into the fiction of the game, into the lore. So how do I do that? I have a character say the word. Seems simple enough. And again, you'll notice that that is not in and of itself funny. Just saying this non-existent word is not really funny. To make it funny, you have to frame it, contrast it with a grounded reality. So I had the other character call out this mistake. Say, what are you talking about? That's not a real word. And once again, I found myself in the position of having to answer the question, why? Why would this alien say this wrong word? It's not a real word. Why? Is it just to taunt me? Well, maybe he simply does not have a very good grasp of the English language. Again, I don't get the luxury of you know, criticizing my ideas. So fine, that'll be fine. Now I have to just prove it. This is a stupid alien who doesn't understand the English language very well. How do I prove it? By having him do more of it, saying other things wrong as well. So Shoptog and Shipe and everything. So that's basically how you do it. If this is true, then what else is true? I want you to notice something. I want you to notice that, well, starting from this simple made-up word, we have, all of a sudden we have a silly, interesting character who says words wrong. We have a comic relationship between two characters because one of them is just has to tolerate the other one's vocabulary malfunctions. Hopefully we know enough about these characters that we can relate to them.
Can you find that just by looking at their faces? You get
Yeah, obviously. Very expressive faces, you know, courtesy of Raido. This is just the same image flipped. And we have also introduced the players to the universe that this game takes place in. We have given the motivation of the characters, and maybe, who knows, maybe we've also made people laugh, hopefully. And another thing I want you to notice, this didn't take any effort. There was no real energy or effort put into making up this piece of dialogue. It happened almost by accident, which is what which is why I'm saying explore. You just ask the question why, and you give simple answers. Why do they need sheep to power their ship? Where are they going? To a concert, and so on and so on. So you want to give simple explanations. Sometimes you can give the obvious explanations. Sometimes you want to take the surprising route. But what you don't want to do is invent a story. You want to discover it. I did not start writing that piece of dialogue. I started that without any ideas. You know, like I said, you don't need any ideas. You just need a starting point. I didn't start with a plan. I didn't start with the thought, you know, I got this great idea for a sci-fi story about this alien who mispronounces words. It's gonna be great. No, I just had that one piece of information that, you know, aliens are stealing sheep. And, you know, that one made-up word, and that was it. Just, I explored the rest of the universe around it and discovered my narrative and the characters. And the great thing about discovery and exploration and not inventing is that if you are discovering, you are surprising yourself. And if you are surprising yourself, you will definitely surprise your audience. And if they are surprised, chances are they will laugh, because laughter is an act of surprise. In case you didn't know. I think I have that written down. No, I don't have that written down. Let's get technical. Let's do a really short version of something that's called writing jokes. What is a joke? Can somebody tell me what a joke is? A definition for a joke. Does anybody know?
Well, didn't you say that it's a surprise?
I said laughter is an act of surprise, yes, and that's very close. Obviously, this is a stupid question and a trick question, because I don't think there's any I don't think there's a good definition that applies in all cases for what a joke is, but something that most comedians work with that I know of is a joke is the violation of expectation. See? It says so right there. What does that mean? Well, in order to make someone laugh, we give them first an expectation, and then we subvert or defeat that expectation somehow. For example, this is the second piece of dialogue from the sheep game. Hey Blurg, look, I got another sheepdog. What did you just call me? Not a good example, by the way, but it is an example of the principle of the violation of expectation. The expectation being here in the second line that this guy on the left here is correcting the first guy, the guy on the right, when in fact, that's the expectation, and the other guy misinterprets this as him calling him a sheepdog. That's it. That is the violation. That is a violation of expectation. You can look at better comedians and see how they do their jokes, but mainly, basically, a single joke is the violation of expectation. So yes, it is a surprise. Now, and this particular surprise works by exploiting ambiguity in language. So the second line here is ambiguous. It means we don't know for certain. It could mean several things. It could have several different interpretations. And hopefully the player looking at that goes takes the obvious interpretation, the first interpretation, which is, I am just correcting you. You said the wrong thing. It's a sheepdog, not a sheepdog. And here we subvert the expectation by having the other character take the non-obvious interpretation. This is really technical. I hope you're getting this. I don't think this is important. Like, I don't think this is the most important thing. I think that having relatable characters and I think having relatable characters is more important, and you should first get set up a world that the player cares about and people the player cares about before you start doing the jokes. Because then the jokes will be stronger if the people care about the characters. And you know, hopefully this joke works better because we've already established that this guy is not very good with language. So we know, yeah, that's totally him. He wouldn't get what the other guy's saying. Which takes me to the final part of this presentation, the final chapter, chapter 3, comedy in gameplay. So, I mean, this is all fine and great, right? But this is not, this has very little to do with games, right? It's just sort of, you know, tacked on to the game, the existing game. You can still have the gameplay without this text, and you can have this text without any gameplay. This is not integral to gameplay. And yeah, because let's talk about movies quickly. In movies, people are often told to show, not tell, because movies are a visual medium. So, for example, if a character is sad, You know, we don't want to find that out by a line of dialogue or having them say I am feeling sad. Or we don't want to find that out by narration or voiceover. We want to find out from visuals, you know, by having a close-up of the character being sad. Bad example. So also likewise, you know, if we have an action scene, you know, you don't want the camera to cut to black and then have someone narrate. You know, then they went into this lobby and shot everybody up, and it was really gruesome, and there was blood and bullets flying everywhere, and this guy flipped. And you really should have seen it. You know, it's you know, we actually want to see it. You know, we actually want to see it. Good example. So games take the concept of show don't tell even a step further by being not just a visual medium, but an interactive medium. Let me see if I have a slide on this. Yeah, I do. Experience. So instead of just showing, instead of tell, you want to show, but instead of showing, you want to have the player experience it. This is a stupid concept because there's no nice, concise, short way of putting it. So you can say show don't tell, but it's much more complicated to say have the player experience something don't show. You know, it's much longer and not as catchy. So I just put that word up there. And you know, Jonathan talked about a lot about the principle of show don't tell in the case of the game Melancholy, so I'm not gonna go over all that because I don't remember what he said. But what does this have to do with comedy? Well, what if I were to tell you that you can tell a joke without saying a word? And you can convey a funny idea simply through gameplay mechanics. Because we already established that all that is needed for a joke is the violation of expectation. And this does not mean that the violation of expectation has to be put in words or, you know, in any way verbalized. We can also subvert the player's expectation simply through game mechanics. How do we do that? I don't know. Thanks. Bye. I don't know. I'm not quite that experienced at game design yet, but I do have some ideas. But I will not share with you these ideas. I want you to give me. I want to hear your ideas first. Anyone can. I will open this up for discussion. Any game you've experienced where you've experienced a joke instead of just hearing it. Or any idea how you would put that in a game you were making yourself?
I remember one example from Fallout 4 where you had these Fallout Vault-Tec lunchboxes. And like everything, the world is very dark and post-apocalyptic, and every time you pick one up, it goes like.
Right. It's a contrast of like the like the setting, it's a contrast in tones, basically.
There was one horror game called Sanitarium, and there was an option for a player to use the keep. You know, in English it's a swing. It's a child swing, which was a small horse or something that made stupid noise. And it's optional.
Yeah.
It's not a part of the game.
Yeah, you just put in something you wouldn't expect in a horror game, obviously. Obviously.
Older Sierra games
yeah.
They are like combine strange things and they work.
Yeah.
And you don't even need to add words or a lot of dialogue.
Exactly.
Five Nights at Freddy's is by itself a comedy
Yeah, it's like a horror game, but like, yeah.
I think the whole game of Goat Simulator is built.
Yeah, because the expectation there is that there would be, well, a simulator, right? You would want to simulate something like flying a jet plane, or I don't know, driving a truck, or maybe it's a commentary on how the simulators are being done on more and more mundane things that you not want to do. So yeah, Goat Simulator. Anyone else? Any other ideas?
Glitches are funny always.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you see something that's out of place, like somebody head turns in a way it couldn't, it's always funny or sometimes creepy too.
Sure.
I think that the beginning of the Goat Simulator was also was a glitch.
Yeah.
It's another game's glitch.
You start with the unintentional, and you have a game by accident eventually, and that's often how comedy happens.
Reminds me of the kittens game from the latest channel.
Yeah.
Just all the bunch of kittens dropping from the ceiling. It's just instantly funny.
Yeah. And that was not intentional, because you know there are no mistakes, only happy little accidents, as Bob Ross said. So I do have a few examples of my own here. That they are not entirely my own, but they like not the games are not all done by me. But I remember for Ludundare 36, the winning game was Space Drunk. I think Lene and Andres were on that team. Who else from here? Marco. Yeah, I remember this one bit where you run out of oxygen and nothing happens. Right, so the expectation there is if you see like a resource bar, like an oxygen tank in a game, you would expect that, you know, once you run out, this is by the way, taking a joke and deconstructing it makes it less funny, but who cares? This is instructional. You'd expect there to be like bad consequences, like trouble will happen now, and then nothing happens. So the expectation is that there'd be trouble, and the violation is that nope, like because oxygen is not important. You survive on vodka, and I would say that is a joke told entirely in gameplay. There was like a small dialogue box that, you know, helped sell it, but I think the joke itself is in gameplay. It's in the experience. It's talked about Gandhi in Civilization. You know, that was also, I think, a joke you can experience rather than hear or see. And finally, coming back to this game, like the stealth game, well, I think that we have expectations about stealth games, right? The expectation being that, you know, we play as this badass dude, not ourselves. And we also have expectations about, you know, narratives about social anxiety and, you know, wanting to avoid people. So when you play that game and you come into one of these people's field of view and you hear that Metal Gear Solid like sound effect, hopefully, you know, you have experienced a joke. Hopefully you will like it more, or maybe you will laugh more because you triggered it yourself. It was interactive and you made it happen yourself instead of just being told or shown. That concludes my presentation, just about. I will drop a few links on you. This first one is a most wonderful talk by John Cleese on creativity. It is very, very useful. Please watch it. It breaks down what you need to be creative and be funny in a very creative and funny way. Please watch it. The sheep game is up on that. I suppose I will post the slides later, so and the links as well. And there's Introvert Adventures. I think that's available for Mac, Linux, and Windows. So if you want to experience the jokes that I've already spoiled for you today in this talk. And to quickly summarize, first of all, take the pressure off. You know, it's much easier to be funny if you don't feel anxiety. Say yes to your own ideas and say yes to others' ideas. Don't self-censor because if you don't have any ideas, like having bad ideas is better than having no ideas. And bad ideas are often a bridge to good ideas. Say and combine ideas into new original ideas. Explain why, because having like the weird by itself is not necessarily funny. You have to explain the lore of the universe. Surprise your audience, because laughter is an act of surprise. This goes back to the violation of expectation and everything. Have relatable characters, because we laugh more when we like the characters we're laughing at. Ground the absurd in a reality. It doesn't have to be this physical reality, but it should be a relatable emotional reality. Discover, don't invent, because then you will surprise yourself and you will surprise others. Show, don't tell, because obviously, and take advantage of the interactive nature. No, this is like the holy grail, I would say, not in game development, but putting comedy in games, is that you want to convey the comedy in gameplay, and I think it's really hard to do with the restrictions of a game jam, but it's certainly something worth trying to take full advantage of the interactive nature of the medium. And finally, have fun, and the funny will take care of itself. And if it doesn't, who cares, because you had fun, so you've already won. Thank you. I have been Jürmo. This has been great. I will take questions and comments if you have any.
What's
Go on.
the funniest game you ever played?
Funniest game I've ever played, I would have to say Portal. Portal and Portal 2, but I think the first one I think I liked more. You have to realize that most of the humor there is also in like the dialogue, or rather the monologue you hear from the GLaDOS.
Well, it had some really good gameplay.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, first dying, GLaDOS tried to kill him.
Yeah.
It's like something really bad.
Yeah.
I remembered another example of gameplay mechanic being funny without any words was kind of similar to the Fallout one. In Just Cause 3, you have this system you can like get the equipment or vehicles dropped in anything, a location. Basically, let's say you want to order a big fighter jet, and the helicopter just drops a tiny package, it falls, and then it goes like big fighter, and lots of confetti falling.
Okay, if there's no further questions, then I will leave now. Don't follow me home, or do whatever.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's follow him home.
Oh yeah, a couple of points before you leave or something. Jürmo mentioned game jams a couple of times.
Yes.
Next one is going to happen at the end of January.
Do the people on the stream need to hear this? Or?
Why not?
Okay, I will unmute it again. It should be unmuted now.
Sure.
I don't know.
Let me see the window. Yeah. I'm not sure what it does. Okay. No? No? Yeah.